Let's be very clear. We are not here to talk about second chances. We are here to dissect a system of high-stakes influence, a meticulously engineered process of psychological recapture. This is a diagnostic breakdown of what people call the Hoover, a mechanism designed to dismantle your authority, your reality, right from the inside out. We're going to map the invisible architecture of this hope trap, a system that you'll see not just in relationships, but in high-control groups and even corporate dynamics. It's a fundamental pattern of power. So let's get into the analysis.
Now this quote, it really gets to the heart of the paradox we're exploring. See, psychological recapture isn't about force, it's about seduction. It's about reframing the entire narrative. The strategy isn't to deny the prison ever existed. Oh no, it's to retroactively redefine it as a privilege, an exclusive club that you just misunderstood. This weaponizes one of our deepest human needs, the need for our past suffering to have meant something. The target isn't dragged back kicking and screaming. They are lured back by this intoxicating promise that all that pain was actually for a purpose, and that paradise was right where they escaped from all along.
So let's get really precise here. The term hoovering, it sounds casual, but what it describes is a strategic operation. We're defining it as a resource recovery mission. And what's the resource? You, your attention, your emotional labor, your validation. It's a deliberate process with two goals. First, it's an audit. It's testing your boundaries to see what defenses you still have up. And second, it exploits one of the most powerful glitches in human psychology, that desperate biological need we all have to finish the story. And this right here, this is the fundamental question you have to ask. When that message pops up, the ghost in your inbox, you have to learn to see past the emotional language and analyze its function. Is it genuine remorse, or is it a probe? Is it intelligence gathering? A Hoover is an audit. It's sent to test the strength of the new you, the resilience of your support system, and the firmness of your resolve. Strategically, it's not about connection. It's about checking if your no is still operational.
Okay, so let's examine the target. How does a capable, intelligent, high-functioning person, often an expert in their own right, become so vulnerable to this system? It's a paradox, right? The most competent people often fall the hardest. We're going to look at the observable pattern of how they get trapped, a state we can call being hope-bound, which over time leads to this slow, steady erosion of their will, a kind of moral atrophy.
We've all seen this, or maybe you've lived it. The sudden erosion. Picture this. A friend, a colleague, someone you respect spends months, maybe years, meticulously rebuilding their life after a toxic situation. They're absolutely thriving. Career's taking off, they're healthy, their mind is clear. They've built fortress walls. And then a single text message arrives. Just one sentence that says everything they fought for years to hear. And the internal monologue just flips. It goes from, I'm finally free, to, well, maybe this time. And in an instant, all that progress just evaporates. The walls don't crack, they turn to dust. The system is back online.
That single message, it's designed to trigger a very specific cognitive state, what we can call induced analytical panic. This is where a person's greatest strengths, their logic, their analytical mind, are turned into weapons against them. It's a perfect example of something called the Zeigarnik Effect, which is just a fancy way of saying our brains remember unfinished business way more intensely than things we've completed. That unresolved conflict is the ultimate unfinished task, and an expert mind, trained to solve problems, sees this as the final puzzle it has to solve, overriding all other logic with that primitive, biological need to be right and to finally have their reality validated.
And this just nails the core transaction. When someone finally says the exact words you were desperate to hear, it feels like a win. It feels like vindication. But you aren't winning, you're surrendering. That validation delivers such a powerful neurochemical hit. Dopamine, oxytocin. It feels like pure relief. And just like that, the influencer becomes the sole supplier of that feeling. In that moment, you are literally handing over the remote control to your own brain, letting your emotional state be managed by someone else, all because the desire to be understood became more important than the need to be safe.
So let's shift into full diagnostic mode. This process isn't random. It isn't just a result of messy emotions. The Hoover is a system of cognitive engineering. It has a predictable architecture because it doesn't target your personality, it targets universal exploits in how all of our brains are wired. It has specific stages designed to dismantle boundaries, create dependency, and reestablish control. We're going to break that system down piece by piece.
Here is the systemic failure. The trap isn't the other person, the trap is the process. It's a feedback loop that exploits the very wiring of our brain's reward system.
and it runs on its own logic, often independent of the conscious intent of the person running the playbook. Understanding this loop is everything. It's the key to seeing it in action. This is the moment where agency breaks. This is where the rational mind goes offline and the system takes over.
We can map this process as the vacuum-seize loop. It has 4 distinct stages, and the sequence is critical. Each stage primes your brain's neurochemistry for the next one, which makes the whole thing incredibly effective. It starts with the nostalgia anchor strike, moves to the masterstroke of the surgical apology, then it transitions into the behavioral conditioning of selective reality testing, and it all culminates in the total capture of a perceptual monopoly. Let's break down exactly how each stage works.
Stage 1 is the nostalgia anchor strike. Now, this is not just casual reminiscing. The influencer identifies a golden memory, a peak moment where you felt powerful, loved, or truly seen by them. Then, they don't just mention it, they saturate your senses with it. A photo from that day, a link to the song that was playing, a remember when. This creates a powerful dopamine hook. It's not about the memory, it's about reactivating the feeling of that memory. It's a neurochemical map to a past reward so potent that the high it gives you can temporarily override the logic of your present-day boundaries.
Once that nostalgic door is open and your defenses are down, the system moves to stage 2, the surgical apology. This is the masterstroke. It's not a clumsy blanket, "I'm sorry for everything." No, it is surgically precise. The influencer validates your specific pain point, the one thing you argued about for years, the one injustice you could never get them to admit. They'll say, "You know what? You were right about that one night. I finally get it. That was my fault." This precision is key because it makes you feel like there's been a massive breakthrough without them having to admit to a whole pattern of behavior.
And what is that perfect surgical apology trigger? A state of neural relief. Your brain is flooded with oxytocin, and oxytocin isn't just the love hormone, it's the trust hormone. It's a biological lubricant that lowers our defenses. To your brain, the long, exhausting war is finally over. And in this state of neural relief, holding on to your boundaries suddenly feels illogical. It even feels cruel. Re-engaging, on the other hand, feels like justice. The biological drive for resolution is so powerful it feels like the only sane choice. Now we move to stage 3, and this is where the system really digs in: selective reality testing. Now that you're talking again, the influencer provides what we can call reward warmth, but it is absolutely conditional. They're affirming, they're kind, they're validating, as long as you slip back into your old role. The second you assert a new boundary or bring up the past, that warmth vanishes. This is the dependency anchor. It's textbook B.F. Skinner, variable ratio reinforcement. The reward is intermittent and unpredictable, which, just like a slot machine, creates the most powerful addiction. Your brain starts working harder and harder for that unpredictable hit of their approval. All of that conditioning leads to the final, entrenching stage: perceptual monopoly. The influencer has now become the primary source, the default setting for your reality. You stop checking the data from your own past. You stop trusting the input from your friends. You start looking to them to tell you who you are, what's real, and how you should feel. They have successfully isolated you from any conflicting information and set themselves up as the sole judge of your world. The power has completely shifted. You're no longer a sovereign individual. You're now a petitioner in their court. So we've mapped the how, the 4-stage architecture of this trap. But the critical question is still why? Why is this system so devastatingly effective even against really smart people? So now we're going to pivot from the external mechanics to the deep-seated psychological vulnerabilities and cognitive biases that it so perfectly exploits. Why does the brain not only accept, but in some cases actually welcome the trap?
This right here is the fundamental principle at play. Our brains are wired to despise unresolved stories and social vacuums. It's the Zeigarnik Effect again, in its most painful form. An unfinished story, especially when tied to our identity, registers in the brain as a threat. We crave closure so intensely that this need to close the loop can become stronger than our desire for the actual truth. And the Hoover offers a simple, elegant, deeply satisfying, though totally false resolution to that open loop. It's basically a cognitive painkiller.
This slide just visualizes the cognitive dissonance perfectly. Look, on one side you have the words you're hearing. I've changed, it was my fault. This is what's called a heuristic, a mental shortcut. Our brain loves these words because processing them is easy, it's metabolically cheap. But on the other side, you have the hard, painful data of past behavior. The apology offers relief, while the data requires effortful, painful analysis.
So, what does the brain do? It chooses the path of least resistance. We accept the words to resolve the dissonance, not realizing we're being chemically managed by our own brain's need for an easy answer.
Okay, so armed with all this, the mechanics, the psychology, how do we spot this trap in real time? How do we defend against it? The key is to shift out of emotional interpretation and into objective diagnosis. You have to become a neutral observer of the dynamic, not just a participant in the drama. And for that, we need analytical tools, clear, quantifiable markers to recognize the system when it's running.
And this is the central diagnostic question you have to burn into your mind. To see the trap, you have to stop listening to the apology and start auditing the agreement. You have to look past the beautiful words and analyze the unspoken structure of the exchange itself. What are the terms and conditions? What's the implicit contract you're being asked to sign in exchange for this temporary relief? The apology is the bait, the agreement is the trap.
So here's your first metric, the validation behavior disconnection. This is a quantifiable point of divergence. You can actually track it. Look at the ratio. The amount of social and emotional effort you are pouring into this interaction versus the amount of clarity, consistency, and reciprocity you get back. You spend 3 hours crafting the perfect message explaining your feelings. You get a one-word answer 2 days later. When that ratio becomes wildly imbalanced, you can objectively conclude you are no longer in a relationship, you are servicing a system.
And this leads us to the reconciliation paradox. In these dynamics, the kindest, most empathetic, most forgiving person in the room inadvertently becomes the primary enabler of the system. They act as the emotional shock absorber. They think their hope is healing the dynamic, but in reality, their hope has become a structural component of the trap itself. It's the fuel the vacuum needs to run. They are just too hopeful to see that the words "I'm sorry" are not the same thing as the actions of "I've changed."
So given this whole intricate architecture of capture, what is the ultimate act of agency? It's not a better argument, it's not a more eloquent explanation of your pain, and it's definitely not a final confrontation. It's understanding the power of silence. Not as a passive act of avoidance, but as a definitive, strategic move to reclaim ownership of your own story by denying the system the one resource it needs to survive, your response.
And this is the crucial point. True power in this dynamic is not found in being the bigger person or in offering forgiveness. It is found in reaching a state of radical acceptance where you no longer need the past to be different for you to be whole in the present. It's letting go of the need for their apology, their validation, or their admission of guilt. That is the point at which their hooks can no longer find a place to land, because you've eliminated the very vulnerability they were designed to exploit.
Ultimately, awareness of this system is what makes it collapse. Understanding the biological conditioning, the cognitive biases, the predictable architecture, this is how you reclaim your agency. So we're going to end with this final diagnostic directive. Stop analyzing their words. Stop engaging with the system. Stop waiting for the apology that will finally fix the past. Start acting on the end. That is how you own the end of the story.